to share a story about how I moved from a moment of certainty to a moment of curiosity in my engagement with literature, and how this very moment of curiosity encouraged me to reflect on my way of engaging with literature and eventually changed it. Okay. For instance, I have this rigidity in my thinking. Whenever I read an article, I have this very strong urge to label everything essentialist. If an author, for instance, implied their participant had certain characteristic which could possibly be influenced by their certain group memberships, I would mentally be shouting, okay, you are falling into the trap of essentialist. However, this confidence in this moment of certainty soon became a moment of doubt. I remember it really clearly. I was reading this paper by a very famous and well-established scholar. So in that article, he mentioned his disagreement with some scholars because in those scholars' research, they implied or suspected, for instance, their Chinese participant possessed certain characteristics because of the influence potentially of Confucius values. And that point, I actually stopped and thought to myself, I actually know this group in question really well. And I started to ask questions. Is it actually true with people I know? Are they actually immune from the influence of Confucianism, which is a really important fabric in their cultural identity? I couldn't actually resolve the conflict alone, even though I tried really hard. So I decided maybe it was time to reach out and ask for some external help. So what I did was to email my supervisors. It might sound really easy, but back then I had all those mental burdens. I felt very self-conscious and insecure because I was worried. So what if I asked some very stupid questions? What if I completely misinterpreted the scholar's ideas? What if, all the what ifs. So when I was drafting this really long and detailed email, all those uncertainties and concerns were on my mind. After finished drafting, I thought to myself, okay, should I actually send it or not? Well, eventually my curiosity won. I made the right decision, I would say, to send the email.
But I'm going to be talking to you today about how some of the literature set me up for expectations in my results which didn't appear, and kind of the uncertainty that came with that. But then ultimately, after reflection, the new questions it brought and how it gave me new perspectives into my area of research. So to give you some context, the intervention was delivered weekly for 2 hours over the course of a whole school year. And it was delivered to Year 8 and Year 9 students in the UK, so they're aged 12 to 14. And my study compares these students to a control group, so students who didn't take part in the intervention. And the sessions themselves, so the actual intervention, they offered dance, drama, singing, drumming, drawing, rapping, collage making, all different types of art activities, and we measured a range of different wellbeing outcomes. We expected, because of the literature, to find that arts and creative interventions improve wellbeing, in particular self-esteem, But what we found was that it improved participants' perceived ability to cope with stress and life satisfaction, but we didn't see any improvement in mental well-being, self-esteem, autonomy, emotion regulation, stress, or school belonging. And this is not what we expected to find, because it was not what the literature kind of led us to expect. We really thought that there would be a impact in self-esteem. So obviously at this point, I'm like, I've done something wrong. Why? What's happened? Because I think hopefully this goes as I get further on into my career, but as a first year PhD student, obviously, like the only answer is that I've done something wrong. Either I measured it wrong, or the intervention wasn't as impactful as it was expected to be. I was questioning, why is it different to other studies? Or have I misunderstood the literature? Like, do I need to go back and actually reread all of these things? But I started to reflect more critically, and I was thinking, what assumptions do we have, or do I hold, about the power of arts interventions and well-being? Am I being too optimistic? Am I placing too much weight on previous studies? Um, which is then, I think, after the dramatic kind of spiral, you get to this point when you can, you've had like your tantrums with your supervisors and your friends, and you can be like, okay, really, what is happening here? So at this point, having conversations with like critical friends and supervisors, I began to reflect more critically, and be thinking, like, change my thinking from what did I do wrong, what was flawed in my study, to something more interesting, like what makes my study different to others. And a key difference was that my study looked at multi-art. So we were looking at a range of art activities, like I said before, the singing, rapping, poetry, drawing, a whole range of activities, whereas a lot of the studies in the literature were just one single activity. So
Hello everyone, my name is Xian, and I will be busy at the time of reflective sessions, so I have pre-recorded this for you. So I'm going to share how I navigated literature, and the key idea is that I started to realize the importance of active selecting when you deal with literature. So I will start by sharing how I started when I started my PhD, what my perception was regarding literature. In short, at the time, I felt I had to understand everything, every paper, every theory that is relevant to my study. For example, here is one quote I have found at the time, which is written by a famous scholar, Bergson. So, in this quote, in this extract, he explained the time and his waiting experience. So, and he is one of the very commonly cited authors. So, at the time, I felt I had to use what he said. So, this is the words that he has written originally. Um, Even though I don't fully understand what he is trying to express, but I found it also very artistic. So he talked about mixing a glass of sugar and water. It's something that happens in our daily life, and also something that I felt very artistic when you try to perceive that phenomenon, that moment, and when you try to use this very common life moment to make it a theory. So that, but actually, these questions really helped me to think what I have actually experienced from trying to use something that I don't understand. I felt I experienced anxiety when I encountered, can you use them, or why are you telling me these original quotations that everyone can find online? So it really made me doubt myself if I'm suitable for my PhD. So in this process, I experienced from struggling to actually understand it and use it. So I suggest that we don't try to prove that we have read something, or to prove that we have read a lot, and also in the process don't try to understand everything, because some writings may not be suitable for everyone, and we can try to look for alternatives, because the ultimate purpose is to understand and use literature for your own study.